I never imagined a harmless prank could spiral into a full-blown identity swap. My name is Ryan, and on the surface, I was just your average 24-year-old living in a modest suburban house with my family. But beneath the ordinary, there was a side of me that very few knew, a side I carefully nurtured in private, a world of transformation, silk and lace, makeup and mirrors. Crossdressing had been a part of my life for years, though I kept it strictly secret. It wasn't something I did for attention or validation. It was personal, a way to explore a softer, more expressive part of myself that never fit neatly into the rigid mold of Ryan, the son, the brother, the neighbor. With makeup brushes and cloves, I could step out of my own skin and into the persona I secretly adored, a graceful, feminine version of myself. For years, it had been my little sanctuary, a world that existed only when the house was empty, when I could lose myself completely in silk skirts and carefully blended eyeshadow. Living with my family made secrecy essential. My parents, especially Mom, were loving but traditional. She ran the household with a watchful eye, and the idea of crossdressing, even as a harmless hobby, was something I couldn't risk exposing. My younger sister, Emily, was blissfully unaware of my secret life. But that would change. And ironically, it all started as a joke. The morning of the incident, the house was quiet. Mom had gone grocery shopping, Emily was at school, and I had the perfect opportunity to indulge myself. I'd found one of Emily's outfits, the soft pastel blouse, the flowing skirt, the dainty flats, and couldn't resist trying them on. I carefully styled her hair, lightly applied makeup, and adjusted the fit of the skirt until I looked almost indistinguishable from her. Standing in front of the mirror, I felt a thrilling mix of excitement and anxiety. I wasn't just crossdressing, I was becoming Emily, at least in appearance. My reflection stared back at me with wide eyes and a nervous smile, a reflection that was both familiar and utterly foreign. It was fun at first, just me laughing at the absurdity of it. But then, Emily called unexpectedly from her phone left on the counter. "Ryan, are you taking my stuff again?" she teased, voice warm and playful. I panicked. I hadn't meant for anyone to see yet. Thinking quickly, I replied in a light, high-pitched tone. Yes? Totally borrowing it for science. My heart pounded as I realized how convincingly I sounded like her. The lie was ridiculous, but somehow it worked. That evening, Mom returned home earlier than expected. I froze mid-laugh, skirt slightly askew, makeup not yet perfected. She stepped through the door, and her eyes widened. "Emily, is that you?" she asked, peering closely. Panic and exhilaration collided inside me. Yes, Mom. Emily, Ryan borrowed my outfit?" "Totally fine." I stammered, my voice pitching higher, mimicking Emily's tones. Mom's gaze shifted between me and the reflection in the hallway mirror. She nodded slowly, seemingly satisfied, but I could feel the tension in the air. Somehow, my prank had escalated into a full-on deception, and my mom now believed I was Emily. The thrill of stepping into her persona was intoxicating, yet terrifying. Every fiber of my being buzzed with excitement and fear. My secret world had never been this exposed, and the consequences of being caught, or making a mistake, loomed large. Could I maintain the illusion? Could I convince everyone, even Mom, that I was Emily, without slipping up? And most importantly, could I enjoy it without losing myself in the process? By bedtime, I had fully embraced the prank. Standing in Emily's clothes, looking at my reflection, I felt a strange confidence. I wasn't just Ryan pretending, I was stepping into a persona that had always existed in shadows. It was delicate, thrilling, and incredibly risky. One wrong move, and everything, my secret, my family's trust, my identity, could crumble. Little did I know, this seemingly harmless impersonation would set off a chain of events that no prank, no joke, could contain. From that night onward, my life would be a careful balancing act of deception, exploration, and danger. And with Mom now believing I was Emily, the stakes had never been higher. The morning after the prank, I woke in Emily's oversized cardigan, curled on the living room couch with the sunlight filtering through the blinds. My heart was still racing from the previous night's thrill and panic. Mom had gone to work early, and Emily was still at school. The house was mine for a few stolen hours, a playground for my daring experiment. I moved carefully to the mirror, studying my reflection. Every detail mattered. The soft curl of Emily's hair, the subtle blush I had learned to apply over months of practice, the way her pastel blouse draped across my shoulders. I traced my fingers over my lips, now slightly fuller from a touch of gloss, and felt a strange combination of pride and vulnerability. This wasn't just a prank anymore. It was becoming real. My phone buzzed with a text from my best friend, Liam. "You still pretending to be Emily? LOL. Pics." I laughed nervously, heart thumping. If Liam saw me like this, it could ruin everything. But the temptation was irresistible. I snapped a quick selfie, capturing the transformation, and sent it with a trembling hand. Almost immediately, Liam replied, "Dude, you actually look like her." Crazy. The thrill of validation surged through me, but it was quickly replaced by fear. What if Mom came home early again? What if Emily returned from school and caught me mid-prank? Every tick of the clock was a countdown, every creak in the house a warning. By midday, I had settled into Emily's routines. I poured a cup of tea in the kitchen, careful to mimic her delicate movements, and practiced the light, airy tone of her voice when I answered a call from a family friend. Each small act of mimicry made me feel more like Emily, but it also made me acutely aware of how fragile the illusion was. A single slip, a laugh in the wrong tone, a gesture that belonged to me and not her, any of these could unravel everything. The transformation wasn't just physical. As I applied mascara, curling my lashes to perfection, I felt a subtle shift in my mindset. I walked differently, spoke differently, even thought differently. Alexis, the secret persona I had always cherished, had merged with Emily's identity, creating something entirely new. The reflection staring back at me was both familiar and foreign, a teasing blend of who I was and who I pretended to be. By the afternoon, the stakes escalated further. Emily's friends had arranged to meet her for a study session at our house, unaware of my impersonation. I heard their footsteps approaching, and my pulse spiked. Panic and excitement tangled in my chest as I positioned myself behind the door, practicing her laugh, her gestures, her way of holding her notebook. When they walked in, I greeted them in her voice, mimicking her signature smile. At first, they didn't notice. I felt a rush of triumph. But then one of them, Sarah, tilted her head suspiciously. "Emily, you sound different. Are you feeling okay?" I froze, feeling a bead of sweat trickle down my temple. I had to think fast.
"Oh,
I've got a cold," I said in a higher pitch, trying to sound convincing. That's why my voice is a little off. They accepted it, and the relief washed over me like a wave. But the incident reminded me that this charade could not last forever. Every interaction, every conversation was a potential minefield. One wrong word, one misplaced gesture, and the secret would explode. As evening approached, the suspense grew unbearable. Mom returned from work, humming softly, and I froze mid-step in the kitchen. Her gaze swept over me, lingering just a little too long on the blouse, the skirt, the subtle makeup. My stomach twisted. Would she realize the truth? Or was she convinced I truly was Emily? "Emily, you've been busy, huh?" she asked casually, setting down her bag. But there was a softness in her eyes, an unknowable curiosity that made my nerves spike. "Yeah, just tidying up," I replied, voice pitched carefully, maintaining the illusion. Mom nodded slowly, her expression unreadable. I could feel her studying me, testing me, weighing the evidence. And I knew that one small mistake could blow everything. My pulse raced as I realized that the prank had become a full-blown deception, one that now included Mom, and one that I had to sustain convincingly, hour by hour. By nightfall, I retreated to my room, slipping out of Emily's clothes with a mix of relief and regret. The thrill had been intoxicating, but the tension had taken a toll. I stared at the mirror, half expecting to see Emily's reflection smiling back. Instead, I saw Ryan, nervous, exhilarated, and dangerously entangled in a web of my own making. I knew that tomorrow would bring new challenges. Friends, family, and my own curiosity would collide, forcing me to navigate a dangerous dance between reality and deception. Each step I took in Emily's shoes deepened the thrill but also tightened the noose of suspense around me. One misstep, one slip of tone, one forgotten gesture, and everything could unravel in an instant. The night was long, filled with anticipation and anxiety. I couldn't sleep, my mind replaying each interaction, each glance from Mom, each laugh that wasn't entirely mine. The thrill of transformation had become a double-edged sword, exhilarating, addictive, and terrifying all at once. And somewhere deep inside, a voice whispered, "Keep going. Don't stop. See how far you can take it." The following week was a high-wire act. Mom had become increasingly attentive, yet remained seemingly oblivious to the truth. Every glance, every casual comment, carried the potential to unravel everything. I felt Alexis, the daring, feminine part of me I had long cherished, thrumming beneath my skin. And now, merged with Emily's persona, the sensation was intoxicating, yet terrifying. It all came to a head on Saturday afternoon. Mom had planned a small family gathering at the house, friends, relatives, neighbors. Emily was still away at a school trip, leaving me alone to maintain the illusion. But the house was bustling, and the risk of discovery skyrocketed. Every knock on the door, every footstep in the hallway, made my pulse pound like a drum. I had carefully chosen Emily's dress for the occasion, a soft, floral sundress that fell just above the knees, paired with delicate flats. I styled my hair to mimic Emily's soft waves and applied makeup with precision, blending mascara and blush to create the perfect, natural look. Standing in front of the mirror, I felt the full weight of the deception. Alexis shimmered beneath the surface, daring me to step fully into the persona. The first guests arrived. Aunt Claire and Uncle Daniel stepped into the living room, exchanging warm greetings. I smiled, my voice pitched carefully to match Emily's. "Hi. So glad you could come." They seemed charmed, oblivious to the slight tremor in my hands. The thrill of maintaining the charade sent adrenaline coursing through my veins. But then came the first close call. Uncle Daniel leaned in, peering at me curiously. "You look different today, Emily." "New haircut?" he asked, tilting his head. I froze for a fraction of a second before replying smoothly, "Just trying something new." My heart raced, sweat prickling along my spine. One wrong move, one mispronounced word, and everything could collapse. The day continued in a tense blur of social interactions. I poured drinks, laughed at jokes, and navigated conversations while carefully maintaining Emily's persona. Every mirror I passed reflected Alexis, a reminder of the dual life I was living, the delicate balance I had to maintain. Then, the unexpected twist. Emily returned early from her school trip. I hadn't anticipated this. My stomach dropped as I heard the car pull into the driveway. Panic and exhilaration collided in my chest. What would she think? How would she react to her brother pretending to be her? And more dangerously, would Mom notice the shift? I ducked into the hallway, pressing myself against the wall as Emily walked through the door, backpack slung over her shoulder, eyes scanning the room. Mom greeted her warmly, still unaware of the truth, and I tried to blend into the background. But Emily's gaze swept past me, stopping just short of recognition. "Emily?" she asked, confusion lacing her voice. I swallowed hard. "Yeah, that's me," I replied, my voice trembling slightly. Alexis shimmered within me, lending courage and poise, helping me maintain the illusion. Emily frowned, clearly suspicious. She stepped closer, studying me. "You all look weird. Something's off." Panic surged, and I had to think fast. "Oh, I borrowed some new clothes. Mom helped me pick them out," I stammered, pointing subtly to Mom. Mom nodded supportively, glancing between us with a smile. She wanted to try something new. "Looks lovely, doesn't it?" Relief washed over me, but only briefly. The tension didn't vanish. Emily's narrowed eyes suggested she wasn't convinced, and my secret was dangerously close to exposure. The situation escalated further when a neighbor, Mrs. Hayes, knocked on the door unexpectedly. "I wanted to drop off a pie," she said cheerfully, stepping inside before Mom could respond. I froze mid-step, Alexis trembling within me. Every movement, every glance, carried the risk of revealing the truth. I guided Mrs. Hayes to the kitchen, careful to maintain Emily's gestures and tone, while Mom engaged in conversation nearby. Then it happened, a symbolic moment that amplified the stakes. As I leaned down to place the pie on the counter, my wig slipped slightly, revealing a streak of my natural hairline. My heart leapt into my throat. I grabbed it instinctively, pressing it back into place, praying no one had noticed. Alexis shimmered, teasing me, daring me to embrace the chaos, to step fully into the persona even as my mind screamed warnings. Emily's eyes widened, and for a second, I thought the illusion was over. She tilted her head, suspicion and curiosity battling across her face. Mom, blissfully unaware, hummed, entirely caught up in the social atmosphere. I realized then that this deception was no longer a harmless prank. It was a dangerous game, a high-stakes performance where every detail mattered. And yet, the thrill of it was undeniable. Each close call, each risk, each glance from a guest or Emily herself intensified the exhilaration. Alexis and I were alive in ways we had never been before. By evening, the party began to wind down, but the tension remained. Guests had left, Emily was back in her room, and Mom was preparing dinner, still unaware. I thought I had survived unscathed, until I heard footsteps on the stairs again, deliberate, slow, cautious. It was Emily. She stepped into the kitchen, her eyes sharp, scanning every movement. "Ryan, what did you do?" she asked softly but firmly. I froze, every fiber of my being screaming. Alexis shimmered behind my eyes, urging me to stand tall, to embrace the persona fully, to face the consequence with courage. "Emily, I was just experimenting," I stammered. My voice wavered, blending fear, excitement, and anticipation. She stepped closer, the reality dawning on her, her expression unreadable. And in that moment, the entire house seemed to hold its breath, the line between prank and revelation blurring completely. I realized then that there was no going back. The web I had spun, the persona I had embraced, had created a world where every action, every glance, every word could ignite chaos or connection. And somewhere deep inside, Alexis whispered, "This is it. Live it. See how far you can go." The house finally fell silent, but the quiet was suffocating rather than comforting. Mom had gone to bed. Emily retreated to her room, and I stood in the hallway, heart hammering in my chest. Alexis shimmered just beneath my skin, urging me to step fully into this precarious new reality. I looked down at the outfit I had worn all day. The floral dress, delicate flats, the curls bouncing softly around my shoulders, and felt a strange mix of pride, vulnerability, and fear. Every reflection reminded me of how close I had come to being discovered. One wrong glance, one slip of tone, one laugh in the wrong pitch, and the entire illusion would shatter. Footsteps suddenly echoed from the stairs. My pulse skipped. I froze mid-step, the room feeling smaller, tighter, like it was closing in around me. Alexis shimmered, whispering a daring reminder. "You wanted this. Own it." The door to Emily's room creaked open, and I instinctively stepped closer, ready to defend the secret, ready to maintain the persona. Emily appeared in the doorway, silhouetted against the dim light, eyes wide and searching. "I know something's different," she said quietly, voice trembling. "Ryan, what did you do?" I swallowed hard. My voice wavered as I responded, blending fear and courage. I was just experimenting, trying to understand." Her gaze sharpened, and I could feel every heartbeat echoing in my ears. Alexis shimmered with nervous excitement, pushing me to stand tall, to face her fully, to embrace this persona even as reality trembled beneath my feet. Then, the phone buzzed on the counter. Mom's number flashed across the screen. My chest tightened. Would she wake and see me? Would she question me? Every second stretched endlessly, the tension tightening around me like a vice. Emily stepped closer, curiosity and suspicion mixing in her expression. I need to know the truth, she said softly. I opened my mouth, ready to speak, ready to reveal everything, or maybe just a part of it, but the sound of a key turning in the front door froze me mid-breath. Mom was coming downstairs. The timing was impossible, perfect, terrifying. I glanced at the mirror, seeing Alexis reflected back with wide, expectant eyes. The duality was undeniable. Ryan, nervous and fearful, and Alexis, daring and luminous. My secret life had collided fully with reality, and there was no escape. Mom stepped into the hallway, smiling warmly, oblivious to the tension in the air. Emily, Ryan, what are you two up to? She asked casually, but her gaze lingered just a fraction too long. I froze. Alexis shimmered behind my eyes, daring me to step fully into the persona, to confront the chaos head-on. Every instinct screamed at me to run, to hide, to change back, but part of me, the part one had nurtured for years, whispered, no. Own it. See it through. The room felt suspended in time. My heart pounded, every breath shallow. Emily's eyes narrowed, Mom's gaze lingered, and I stood at the edge of revelation, teetering between exposure and control. And then everything went still. Silence stretched, heavy and charged. I realized that the next moment would define everything. One word, one gesture, one misstep, and my secret could explode, or perhaps forge an entirely new reality. The story stopped there, suspended in the perfect moment of tension. Ryan/Alexis caught between fear and daring, truth and deception, reality and persona. Who would act first? Mom. Finally noticing the truth? Emily, piecing it together? Or Alexis, daring me to embrace this secret life fully? The answers were still out there, waiting.